Let's move on to higher, lower Hail Mary for week 17. Who am I sitting? Who am I starting? And who am I willing to take a stream on? Starting at the quarterback position, Wolfpack. I am higher on Kirk Cousins. I'm surprised that the experts aren't higher on him. I have him at quarterback 7. I'm 3 spots above the ECR. His finishes these last 3 weeks, 25, 34, and 24 fantasy points. The QB 5, 3, and 6. Now it's a Green Bay defense that, yes, much more of a run funnel than a pass funnel, but this is the second highest over-under on the weekend, 45.5 total points. Cousins has just been absolutely slinging the rock, and no surprise, we've seen Justin Jefferson going absolutely bananas. Like, he's consistently going to be your number 1 wide receiver, which means Cousins should consistently be in your top 6 conversation, which is exactly where I have him in a game that I expect to shoot out this weekend. Gotten a lot of questions about Cousins. I'm not really sure why. Lock him into your lineup. I have him above Goff, above Trevor Lawrence, who he is ranked below right now in the ECR. I mean, that makes no sense to me. In terms of another guy I'm higher on, if you don't have Cousins as an option, I've been really riding this Brock Purdy train, and I know the ceiling isn't great, but he's been quarterback 8, 14, and 13 these last few weeks. I am at quarterback 12, 3 spots above the ECR, because he's been having those solid productive totals, and now he gets the best matchup he's faced all year. The Raiders are giving up the 5th most points to quarterbacks, top 3 across their last 5 games. It's a really nice spot for Brock Purdy. They can be run all over too, so it could just be a McCaffrey 30-point bonanza and leaving minimal scraps for Brock Purdy to eat after that. But he's also had 2 touchdowns every single time he's been on the field. I think the floor is pretty nice and sturdy, and this could be the ceiling week where we see him crack that top 7 or 8. So I'm definitely a fan of streaming Brock Purdy if you have him. Again, quarterback 12 on the week. In terms of lower at the quarterback position, it's frequently on here. It's Daniel Jones. And I know Campanelli's probably like, F off, Giants fan. But, man, he's had no games. He had only 2 games on the year above 300 passing yards. So he's really been – you're banking on the rushing production here. And Indy, they're better to run on than pass on. So maybe that ends up working out okay for him. But we've seen him in the top 12 of quarterbacks only 4 times on the season. So you're really banking on something that just has not happened very often. And Indy is as much of a run funnel as they are. Great spot for Saquon. I think Saquon's going to have a monster day. It's not a team that you can throw on easily. We just saw Justin Herbert held to under 7 fantasy points. Piece of shit. Definitely ruined a few semifinals for me. It wasn't Justin Fields. It was Justin Herbert who ruined my season. But we're not going to talk about that this week. Daniel Jones, though, if Herbert can't get it done against that defense, I don't believe that Daniel Jones is a great viable threat. He's ranked as a top 12 quarterback right now. I'd rather have Purdy. I'd rather have Minshew if Jalen Hurts is out. There's just other teams I'd like to go against, other games I'd like to target. That seems like a hideous game where they're not going to need a lot of points. And we've seen the Giants, when they don't need a lot of points, they just kind of burn that clock, get in, get out. And that's been a winning formula for them. Solid formula, but not a great fantasy formula. This feels like one of those like quarterback 19, quarterback 20 weeks for Daniel Jones, not those rare top 12 weeks. We've, again, only seen it 4 times on the season. And then my Hail Mary, if Brock Purdy's not there, he's out there in over 50% of leagues. So definitely my number 1, Minshew my number 2 at 30% rostered. But in the off chance Minshew is not playing, I got to shout out Mike White, who's 20% rostered right now. I know it's only 3 games. I know it's a small sample size, but he averages the most passing yards in the NFL across his starts this year, more than Patrick Mahomes. Crazy, wild stat, but it's the truth. The Jets, when anybody has not named Zach Wilson, has been the quarterback, are averaging the most pass attempts and most passing yards in the league across their last 2 seasons. Seattle, a much better pass defense than run defense, but Mike White, in my top 15 quarterback conversation this week, he's out there in a bunch of leagues. He would be the first Hail Mary I'll toss out there. The next one, though, would be Sam Darnold against Tampa Bay. This Panthers team, yes, far more run heavy. That's what they want to do. But Darnold has been okay, certainly when he has been needed. 22 fantasy points last week, the quarterback 8 on the week. It's been okay other than that, 12, 13, 17. He's kind of like a less sexy Brock Purdy, if you will. I mean, Brock Purdy's not overly sexy himself, but he hasn't finished below the top 20 quarterbacks on the season. So I have him ranked inside my top 20, and I'm plus 5 ECR. He's only 7% rostered. That's a guy you can go to. But if you really want to roll the dice, because the ceiling is certainly capped with again, Sam Darnold, you're kind of relying on a rushing touchdown to happen. See, he's like the poor man's Daniel Jones, though. Like, I honestly do not view him and Daniel Jones all that much more differently in fantasy. Again, I want to be very clear about that. In fantasy. And that's a huge game, too, for the Panthers. Divisional showdown. I could see him running, he's great at those read options. Right? There was a point last year he led Sam Darnold the NFL in rushing touchdowns. So would not be shocked at all to see him run one in and be a nice solid top 20 option. If you're in 2 QB leagues, you're desperate for that. But I did want to shout out again Carson Wentz, who only made 6 starts on the year, but 3 of those starts were inside the top 5 quarterbacks, 30, 29, and 23 points. I know it's sickening. I know it's scary. But when he's had decent matchups, he's done well. Cleveland is not the best of matchups. It's right middle of the road, but they are very susceptible to the big play. I think they've given up the 3rd most passing big plays on the year. Much, much better of a pass defense than a run defense, and a lot like similar to a lot of these teams we're talking about. But Wentz, he has the blow up again, 39, 29, and 23. 8% rostered. You're not going to find a quarterback with that type of ceiling on your waiver wire. So if you're an underdog in a super flex league and you're just like, fuck it, YOLO, let's go, Carson Wentz could be your guy this week. Man, that's a famous last words if I've ever heard him. Carson Wentz could be your guy. But I just want to shout out the ceiling, top 5 in half of his games so far this year.
What is up, you fantasy wolf? Thanks so much for tuning in. If you haven't already, share your thoughts in the comments, check out some more videos, and join the newest Wolfpack by subscribing below.